It happened. It finally happened. Hi, it's Danielle. This is my perfume journal where I document my love of perfume, and we're going to talk about the re-release of Boudoir from Vivienne Westwood. But before I start, little caveat, I am a lifelong perfume enthusiast. I am not a reviewer or a critic or an expert or an influencer. I just love perfume. And Boudoir has always been one of my holy grail perfumes. I am so excited to tell you about the re-release of this fragrance and give you a bit of an idea of how the new Boudoir compares to the original. So Boudoir was the first perfume released by the iconic designer Vivienne Westwood in 1998. I grew up in the 70s, I came of age in the 80s, and so I remember the rise of Vivienne Westwood's fashion. It was tightly linked to punk music, to new wave, and then to the new romantics. In the 70s, Vivienne Westwood and her partner were running a London fashion boutique that significantly impacted the punk look. And probably the first moment that made me sit up and take notice of her designs was when I discovered Adam and the Ants in the early 80s. They were a new wave, new romantics band, and they had this sort of romantic pirate style that was incredible. And Vivienne Westwood was the architect of their look. Her designs pushed the boundaries of what fashion could be. They had like a nod to history with a modern punk twist. She is a total icon. And I share this because typically it doesn't take very long for a design house to come out with a perfume to accompany the fashion. But for Vivienne Westwood, her perfume did not come out until 1998. And I can't say for sure why, but if I had to wager a guess, it would be that if Vivienne Westwood was going to put her name on a scent, it had to be quintessential Westwood. This was not going to be your run-of-the-mill fragrance. And perfumes like that are going to take time to envision and then to create. And so in creating the original Boudoir, Vivienne Westwood chose a Dutch perfumer, Martin Gras, as the nose. And that was interesting to me because if you look on Parfumo, there are only 12 perfumes credited to his name, which again, I cannot say for sure, but I suspect that he authored way more fragrances than 12, having worked for the companies that eventually became what is now IFF, or International Fragrances and Flavors, and Symrise. They are two of the largest fragrance houses next to like Givaudan and Firmenich. In a nutshell, these are the huge companies that produce fragrances and flavors for everything from like perfume to household cleaning products to like energy drinks. They create captive molecules to mimic expensive naturals for both cost and sustainability. So there's an element of chemistry here. And that's where we can bring it back to the perfumer of Boudoir, Martin Gras. He was a chemistry student prior to joining what is now IFF. And then even after he retired, he continued to study the connection between genetics, molecular biology, and perfume. Way over my head, but all of this to say, we're not talking about amateur perfumery here. She chose her perfumer well. Before working on Boudoir, Martin Gras created perfumes for Pierre Cardin, for Salvador Dali, for Ted Lapidus. All of these were brands that definitely made a mark on the fragrance world in the 80s. That is significant here because Boudoir feels and wears very 80s to me. It has also been well documented that Vivienne Westwood loved the Osmothèque in Paris, in Versailles. The Osmothèque is like a museum of sorts where perfumes through history are kept in their original formulations under careful conditions to preserve them. And so she wanted her perfume to give nod to the forgotten scents of the past, but with a distinctive Westwood flair to it. It also needed to be a reflection of her belief that perfume is the most intimate form of personal expression. And so this perfume was going to be like equal parts historical, romantic, personal, and definitely punk. And then there was the design of it all. The original bottle is capped by the gold metal orb that became the logo and the emblem of the Westwood brand in 1987. And Vivienne Westwood's son, Ben, has a wonderful essay on the Westwood website about this orb. If you're interested in going down rabbit holes like I am, it's totally worth a read. And the liquid inside was a flamingo pink kind of color at first, and it would deepen over time from the vanilla in the composition to something much darker and richer looking. And then the original bottle's label and the box was very romantic in a like pink and wine color scheme with that signature Vivienne Westwood font we still see today. And so with the re-release of Boudoir, we have the bottle in its original shape with that signature metal orb cap. The box is amazing, I think. It's a salmon pink with the logo and gold filigree designs, and then the name of the perfume on the box, like the nude label on the bottle, is written in a font created from Vivienne Westwood's own hand. And the ad for the new Boudoir included the shadow of like a dancing figure, which is also on the box. I loved the original box for its retroness, and I love that the Vivienne Westwood company went in a new direction with the box and didn't just reproduce what was already created. And incidentally, the original Boudoir was produced by Coty, but this perfume is an actual Vivienne Westwood company production, made in Italy. And so this brings us to the scent. Before I start, I do want to say this. I used to be, but I am no longer a formulation nostalgist or purist. Over the years, I have seen so many of my beloved fragrances go through formulation changes, and there was a time when I was chasing vintage and chasing original discontinued scents to kind of like recapture memories. But the truth is that memories cannot be recaptured or relived. And perfumes are much like memories. Once they have been discontinued, they cannot be replaced in the way that we would love them to be. We've seen IFRA restrictions affect formulations. Materials go bye-bye. All of these things are going to change our most beloved perfumes. And this is where we have to decide how okay with that we are willing to be. Like there are some perfumes so important to my life that if they were to be reformulated today, I probably would not even buy them. I just want them to live in my mind as I remember them. But then there are many, many perfumes that I am quite happy to have in their reformulated versions than either not have them at all or go broke trying to find them in their original form. This is a decision that I made as a perfume lover, that I would rather enjoy a perfume for what it is today than spend my time lamenting and wringing my hands over the horrors of reformulations. Like, I would love to fit into my Levi's jean jacket from the 80s that is soft and broken in and always had my favorite Boy George and Duran Duran and David Bowie pins all over it. But I don't fit into that anymore. So I am good with the jacket I got at Kohl's that doesn't quite fit or look the same as my original jacket. It isn't covered with buttons from my favorite bands, but I still like to wear it, and I'm happy with the jacket I have now. Kind of a silly analogy, but that is where I stand with reformulated perfumes. So all of this to say, I love the new Boudoir. I think they did a really good job with this formulation. So to best describe the new Boudoir, I have to compare it to the old. Now, full disclosure, I have never owned a whole entire bottle of the original Boudoir. I have lamented that decision for years, but my finances at the time that Boudoir came out just never permitted me to have more than a bottle or two a year. And so then by the time I could afford a collection that really reflected my enthusiasm for perfume, Boudoir was gone and the prices were sky high. So lucky for me, a very generous friend sent me a decant from her original bottle. And say it with me, perfume people are the best people. So I finally got to experience this scent that I'd waited so long for. I had about 3 mils of it. It lasted a really long time, actually just up until yesterday. I finally treated myself to the last precious drop of my original Boudoir so that I could properly compare the two. All right, let's start out with the notes and the accords. We know that notes don't tell the whole story of a perfume, and at this point, it's kind of difficult to find what might have been the original note list for Boudoir, so I'm going to go with what's on Parfumo. That is my fragrance database of choice. So if you have never smelled Boudoir before, at its core, it is a powdery, spicy, somewhat animalic floral with a very bright aldehydic opening and a sweet, warm, woody base. The top notes in the original Boudoir are aldehydes, orange blossom, marigold, hyacinth, and bergamot. In the mid, you have carnation, jasmine, narcissus, orris, rose, cardamom, and coriander. And in the base, sandalwood, tobacco flower, vanilla, cinnamon, and patchouli. And Parfumo describes this perfume as floral, powdery, sweet, warm, and spicy. And then in the 2025 Boudoir, we have top notes of aldehydes, bergamot, and orange blossom, cardamom, carnation, and damask rose in the mid, and base notes of sandalwood, tobacco, and vanilla. And that matches what is on the Vivienne Westwood website right now. Okay, so I'm going to break down what I smell in the top, the mid, and the base of both the new and the original formulations. And I will also try to describe the feeling or the essence of what the perfume is giving me. You may have seen already that people are saying the first spray of 2025 Boudoir is unmistakably Boudoir, but fresher and lighter. And I would definitely agree with that. The first thing you get in this opening is that bright twinkle of a good healthy dose of aldehydes, and it's coupled with some fresh but kind of spicy green notes. Can I detect orange blossom and bergamot individually? No, not really. Not note by note, but the feeling of the opening of this Boudoir is an immediate sparkle and some green. What this formulation is missing is that touch of deep, herbaceous, almost camphorous quality that you get in the original. Is that from the marigold? I can't say for sure, but as the president of the Bring Back Marigold in Perfumery Club, I'm going to say that marigold is a missing piece in the new formulation. To me, marigold lends an extra spicy, almost like honeyed earthiness to a composition that is very much present in the original, and I am not picking up in the new formulation. So it does not take long for the heart of Boudoir to begin opening up, and that heart, my friends, is all about the florals. The new Boudoir, very much like the original, is deeply, deeply floral. In the original Boudoir, it is the carnation that immediately jumps out at me. It's spicy, it's rich, it's a clove-like carnation. There is an indolic, smutty jasmine, and then a dark rose, all kind of like vying for equal attention. Also in the original, narcissus is a standout floral in the bouquet. To me, narcissus always smells like a little sweaty, a little green, but also raunchy, kind of like a person who has been bathing in vase water. I know that sounds disgusting, but I think it smells amazing in a perfume. I think it's what gives the original Boudoir some of its signature carnality. So the heart of the original Boudoir is like heady and thick and buttery and filling. It's like this tantalizing blend of flowers upon flowers upon flowers, laced with oodles and oodles of spices, all covered in a layer of very expensive dusting powder. And in the new Boudoir, the first thing that struck me as the opening fades is the presence of the rose. It is more of a powdery rose that feels less carnal than the original without going all the way polite. And even though violet isn't listed, I do get that kind of pastille feeling from the rose in this perfume, like a vintage cosmetic or a powdery floral candy, but it doesn't have like a chalky texture to it. The spicy carnation in the new formulation isn't front and center like it is in the original, but it does keep peeking out from behind the velvet drapes, adding a hint of spice to the scent. Nothing like the level of spice you have in the original. But again, my decant of the original was fairly well matured, so I'm sure that that had something to do with the bombastic quality of my particular sample. And so although the spicy florals in the original are so much stronger, they're headier, they're more voluptuous and full-bodied, that doesn't by any means make the florals of the new Boudoir less beautiful. I actually love them. I love that damask rose is the showstopper. It feels kind of like a pair of silk stockings. I kind of love that the carnation is taking more of a back seat to that gentler, more powdery rose. So this boudoir is still boudoir. You can't mistake that beautiful, unique floral bouquet as anything but boudoir. But the heart of this boudoir feels more naughty, where the original is downright filthy. And then in the denouement of this perfume, in the dry down, this is where I think the two versions of the perfumes are most similar. And this is where I find myself the happiest with the new formulation. You do get that sweet, creamy, ambrosial blend of vanilla sandalwood tobacco, that warm, plush, lusty base. And I honestly cannot say that I find the base lacking anything. Those gorgeous base notes just do their dance with the florals, and that is what turns my eyeballs into cartoon spirals. Now, the dry down of the original is nothing short of euphoric, but I have to say that I am very, very happy with the final stage of the new formulation. Like last night, I spent hours comparing the two formulations on my skin, and at the time, I could definitely notice differences. Like the original feels more full-bodied, it's more fortified, it feels more caloric. The original Boudoir is like full fat, heavy cream, where the new Boudoir is like whole milk. It's still decadent, but it's just a little less likely to clog your arteries. But now today, as I'm making this video and I'm only wearing the new Boudoir, the differences between the two seem totally insignificant to me. Like they do not hinder my enjoyment of the new Boudoir one single bit. I think I smell amazing right now. I smell like Boudoir, that classic floral, just like amped up by the unconventional. So I've been putting on 3 sprays every time I've worn the new Boudoir, and I only did 1 spray with the old because it is so strong. And in the new Boudoir, I am finding that the sillage is moderate. My husband said he can smell it if I'm in the same room, but it isn't trailing through the house. And on me, the perfume is lasting what I would consider to be a good amount of time for 3 sprays. I'm getting about 5 or 6 hours on skin and definitely longer on clothes. I've been putting this on before bed, and I can still smell it on my clothing when I wake up in the morning. So, final verdict. Is this the boudoir that I long hoped would make its way into my life without having to take out a second mortgage? And the answer is it is and it isn't. Because whenever we are talking reformulations, that's always the answer, isn't it? It is and it isn't. But the real question is, how important is the original to you? Could you choose to love a reformulation, even if it was close? It still smelled good, but it didn't smell exactly the same. Only we can really answer that question for ourselves. And for me, I love this boudoir. It appeals to my current tastes. It appeals to my sense of nostalgia. It appeals to my sensibilities and to my style. Like I am always going to be a Gen Xer who grew up on punk and new wave and the new romantics. But if I'm being honest, I move a little more slowly these days. I dress a little more conservatively, and I'm kind of softening up on the inside too. I live a quieter kind of a life, but I do love to revisit my more exciting nostalgic days of youth from time to time. And for me, this is what the new boudoir is giving me. It's giving me the sensibilities that made Vivienne Westwood's designs and influence so iconic, so revolutionary. It's all there in the perfume. And like a lot of us who grew up in this era, The irreverence is there underneath it all, but it's cushioned now by a softer and a more gracious kind of surface. And as for me, I'm really, really good with that version of Boudoir. So there is my take on the new 2025 Boudoir from Vivienne Westwood. Have you smelled it? Do you enjoy it, or are you holding firm to the original? I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching this video, for spending time here with me, and for chatting perfumes with me in the comments. I hope you have a really great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.